Hey guys, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, and of course I'm bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. So today's video is really exciting for me because not only do we have more lore to go over, but it's on a character I previously thought would get literally no story whatsoever. But here we are, getting a 3-part story written by Cassandra Kaw on, wait for it, Vivien Reid. That's right, the newest, main set Planeswalker from Magic Core Set 19 is actually getting some lore. Now, the reason I'm so excited by this is because when I first saw her card and the set she was introduced in, I kinda wrote her off. But do you blame me? It's a new Planeswalker premiering in a core set with the main story focused on the history of Nicol Bolas. I didn't think there was gonna be much room for Vivien, and I was right. She wasn't featured in the story of M19, but they're making up for that with her own little mini-series of sorts. So get ready, Vorthos Army, this is episode 1 of the Planeswalker profile for Vivien Reid, Unbowed. But before we begin, as always, I just want to thank the Vorthos Army over on Patreon. They got to see this video days earlier than the rest of YouTube, along with other scores of exclusive perks and rewards. Want to join the Vorthos Army and support the channel? Check the link in the video's description below. Now, back to the lore. So the story isn't by definition an origin story for Vivien Reid, but we do get a glimpse into her past. As we start though, we find that she's a guest on a ship, accompanied by a vampire guide with a fancy French accent. We come to learn that Vivien Reid was a part of this vampire's expedition to a far-off land, an expedition set to capture and transport a live Brontodon back to their home island of Leno. Through their conversation, we learn a few facts about what's going on. We learn that the vampire is an emissary of a massive menagerie found within Leno, and that his name is Frederick. Of course, a staple fantasy name for any French vampire. We learn that Vivien, for whatever reason, traveled here in search of powerful and impressive beasts. Being a planeswalker, that makes sense, and knowing what we do know about her weapon, the arc bow, we know that she traps the essence or souls of creatures within the enchanted weapon, and can summon them at will. So yeah, that also makes sense. She travels here looking for big animals, this vampire appears speaking mythically of a menagerie housing the greatest beasts of the plane, she helps capture them a Brontodon, and Frederick, well, he takes her there. We learn that Frederick is in service to the overly religious and pompous Legion of Dusk on Ixalan, as if the Brontodon didn't give it away. The Legion of Dusk aren't known for their subtlety, and while Vivien is more cautious and skeptical, Frederick continues to flauntly praise his city and the wonders it stores, keeping Vivien's attention for now. Vivien, of course, seems to care far more for the animals than its new quote-unquote caretakers, asking if it'll be cared for, as this journey had caused it to be weakened. Frederick gives a classic non-answer. Not good. They dock and finally let out to the great city of Leno, and Frederick did not understate. It looked as if the city was built only for nobility. Vampires walked in perfect gowns and pressed gaunt clothing, ornate wigs, the fancy things. The city was totally without personality. No cobblestones, no butcher shops or bakeries, only finery. It disgusted Vivien. Almost as soon as they docked, a pickpocket, a human, attempted to rob Vivien. His sleight of hand wasn't sleight enough, and he was captured by the Planeswalker. Frederick hands her a knife, and the man asks to pay a penance of blood. Here on Leno, the currency is blood. With everyone in power being vampires and all that, it kinda makes sense. A cup of blood could go a long way on this island, but Vivien was disgusted by the thought. She believed Leno to be nothing more than a stockyard, but Frederick simply explained that the humans who make a living here do so through their blood, and the beasts they transport are here for preservation. The Legion of Dusk looked to preserve Ixalan. A lie, no doubt. Here we get a glimpse into Vivien's past. She mentions Nicol Bolas, and this we kinda already knew. Her home plane of Scala was destroyed by Bolas for a yet undetermined reason. All Vivien recalls is the sights, sounds, and smells of its demise. Fire. Remaining curious to the treasures these vampires hold, and by treasures I mean living things, Vivien pressed on as Frederick brought her finally to the menagerie, a living museum of life on Ixalan, though the displays there weren't as lively as Vivien had expected from Frederick's description. The walls were covered with the pelts and heads of countless beasts, powerful dinosaurs down to humble stags. Those creatures on display still breathing were weak, stumbling, tortured, without any fight left in them, their wild natures poked and stabbed right out of them. It was horrifying. However, despite Vivien's disapproval, Frederick was determined that the main event, the gala in honor of their king, queen, and baron of the menagerie, would change her mind. It was a gallant affair. Nobles arrived in their finest dress and wiggiest wigs. The acts played out more like a carnival than a display of natural life. There was nothing natural about this. Bears dressed in silly rags, raptors beaten and forced to obey commands, all weak, all withering. Vivien's anger boiled over, and politeness thinned. Then came the Baron, the ringleader, the master of this hall and scientist behind all those so-called naturalistic studies. He was on to present the main event, a monstrosaur, again weak. Its roar echoed the hall, begging for the chance at revenge, but it had no hope, no fight. Its teeth were ripped out, scars covered its body. It was visibly thin, beaten, tortured, like everything else in this city. The Arcbow cried out to Vivien. She could feel it. Feel the soul of Scala calling out to her. This needed to end. This city needed to end. Through Frederick's pathetic attempts to stop her, Vivien stands up, disrupting the show, and lets loose an arrow from her bow, just missing the Baron himself. Yet from it, a gigantic beast appeared, hollow and green, a construct of magic, but a reflection of Scala itself. It was a Hydra, unknown to those of Ixalan. The guards and fabulously dressed actors pretending to be warriors had no idea how to react. They believed cutting off its head would kill it like any old dinosaur, but this was a Hydra, and it never went down. The guards were torn into as Vivien made her escape, being chased by yelling guards and panicked nobility. The monstrosaur seized its chance to lash out at its captors. It had broken a leg in the struggle, but still managed to thrash its massive skull about, killing its torturers. A fainting victory, but it roared triumphant nonetheless. Dodging her pursuers, Vivien let loose a few more magical bolts. She summons a Polaco worm, massive and foreign compared to the creatures of Ixalan, even its dinosaurs. The guards were shocked that it could swallow them whole in just a single bite. Vivien also summoned a weird armadillo deer thing, a creature native to Scala with massive antlers and no sense of fear, spearing and goring guards in its path. Despite this, the guards and the Baron managed to catch up. She let loose a swarm of massive hornets to take care of the crossbowmen as she eyes her true prize, the Baron himself, the man in charge of this menagerie. The Baron was a skilled fighter, undead as a vampire is, but still quick enough to interrupt her attacks. As a dust of green settled, she set upon him with daggers, not the arcbow, stabbing into his gray, discolored skin, meeting bone and tendon. Yet, her prey did not fall, only meeting her with a dark grin. Fighting hand to hand, the force of Scala met the Baron blow for blow, until her previous arcbow constructs gave way. The guards surrounded her. She managed to knock out a few of them before being dragged off herself. Wow, my dudes. Actual holy shit. The badassness of Vivien Reid can't be understated here. I never thought I'd like a green planeswalker as much as Garruk Wildspeaker, but Vivien Reid, in this initial story, is getting there. Her conviction, her arcbow, wow, just her constructs are so amazing, and makes me want to learn more about her past of Scala and what's going on with the vampires here in the Legion of Dusk. I loved this story, and can't wait for the next ones because, wow man, we return to a previous plane with a new planeswalker and a wholly different story. This is what I want to see more of from Wizards of the Coast. Give me more of this, and give me more of the eel-talking Vivien Reid. Also, great side note, I complained during the Ixalan story that no one really mentioned the elder dinosaurs, but guess what? The Baron and Frederick mentioned these beasts, and how they want to capture one. Oh my god, please just let this play out as a classic Jurassic Park 2 situation. This really needs to happen to the city of Leno. Anyway guys, this was just a quick little summary of the story. Please go back and read the entire article from Cassandra Caw, linked in the video description below. You guys won't be disappointed, although I will say, I had a lot of issue reading some of the interesting words here, but that's just because I'm a little stunted in that regard. So that's gonna do it for Unbowed Chapter 1, Vivien Reid's Planeswalker Profile. Remember, you could get this video earlier if you join the Vorthos army over on Patreon, not to mention signed cards and access to our Discord. Consider joining the Vorthos army on Patreon linked below. You can also show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video across the multiverse. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time here on the Aether Hub.